So we're going to dive across to look at some people's RB3, some people's maybe a little bit lighter. So that's Zach Evans, who's the running back out of Ole Miss. He's someone that I really struggle, if I'm being honest, to fall in love with. I think that a lot of people have hyped him up. You know, this is a 5-star recruit out of high school, obviously via TCU, had those 2 years, then ended up at Ole Miss. He's 5'11", 195 pounds. He does a lot well. For me, I just feel like I just want more. Every time I watch him, I just want, like, he's good, but I just don't see great. Are you a Zach Evans guy?
I am a Zach Evans guy. He is RB3 for me. Pretty comfortably RB3, I would say. I don't know that there's a lot that's going to sway that. And he's an interesting guy, to say the least, right? Because for anybody who doesn't know, it's like one of the crazier stories of recruiting and how it all went down. Like at one point he was the #1 recruit, and then there was the whole weird thing where he was supposed to end up at Georgia, and then got released from his letter of intent there, and he ended up catching on with TCU like shortly before his freshman year started. So it was a weird kind of unheard of recruiting path, especially for his caliber of recruit. Popped a little bit as a freshman. He did average over 7.5 yards a carry, but didn't get a whole lot of work. He only had 54 attempts. We saw a little bit more his sophomore year. Still averaged 7 yards per carry, but only got 92 attempts. I really think this past year, the transfer to Ole Miss got people excited. And I think it would have been the year where we were like, okay, here's the big numbers, except Quinshon Judkins exists, right? And he like absolutely blew the doors off everything as a true freshman. And, you know, Evans had a good year, 144 carries, 936 yards, 9 touchdowns. But Judkins absolutely stole the show there. So I think if it wasn't that sort of situation, and if we saw him, you know, land in a spot or maybe enjoy less of a timeshare there, not saying they were wrong for featuring Judkins, he was electric, but, you know, the numbers probably aren't as good as we would have hoped for them to be, since he ended up back in another sort of timeshare scenario. I do think he, like you said, he does a lot well, maybe lacks some of that, like we said with Bijan and we said with Jahmyr Gibbs, like this is what they're really special at. I think what Zach Evans is really special at is he can get north-south and is a good, powerful, explosive runner. He's got really, I think, natural instincts for the position. Like when you watch him play, I can see why, okay, I could see why this guy was a high caliber running back recruit. He looks like he is a decisive north-south kind of one-cut runner. I think he can even add a little bit more weight to his frame without sacrificing a lot of explosiveness or anything like that. But I think he's a pretty smooth runner. He pairs a pretty ideal frame with really excellent contact balance. He's got a knack for working through contact. He's got good vision to help make the most of rushing lanes. The one big hole is we really haven't seen anything as a receiver, right? I mean, his best in college was this past year, and it was 12 catches. So, I mean, he's got 30 catches across his total college career. That was Gibbs's freshman season, right? Like, so that's the difference is we haven't really seen him pop as a receiver the way we have some of these other guys. But I do think, I feel pretty confident that an NFL team is going to take him on day 2. And that is going to, like, if he falls out of day 2 and goes to day 3, that's going to be a big blow to his value. But as of right now, he's RB3 for me.
I think from a fantasy perspective, I'm really concerned about the receiving potential. And we've got some highlights playing here on a clip. Maybe this is me being a little bit mean, but I just like this is about as basic as you can get. And he drops the ball. Like that is a very simple running back screen that he can't bring the ball in. I think he's not a natural catcher. I think he's a poor route runner. I think he basically can only really be used almost in a Derrick Henry-like sense where, we'll get in some touches in the passing game, but it's going to be very basic screens and dump-offs, and we can't expect anything slightly complex from him. I've got him in my kind of 3rd tier, but that is quite a big drop from my 2nd tier in terms of those top 2. And I feel like there's going to be somebody in pretty much every draft I do that likes him more than I do.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I feel like there's players like that. Sometimes that's just the way it goes, right? And you end up with zero exposure to somebody because somebody's always willing to pay a higher price. And it's how I ended up with limited James Cook last year. Like that was the guy for me last year where I couldn't draft him because somebody was always willing to draft him earlier than I was.
Yeah, Damian Pierce was that guy for me. I liked
Yeah.
liked the player, didn't love the player. At cost, I'd have absolutely drafted him. But the problem was that I never, in every league, I felt like he was overdrafted because he was going in the, mid to back end of the first round, quite
Yeah.
frankly, rather than going where I would have felt comfortable as such.
He definitely has to improve as a receiver, and he's really got to get better in pass protection too, which I think in pass pro, like he can get coached up there. He's got the body type for it, but hopefully he can land somewhere where they can really coach him up as a receiver, because right now I agree. I think the best you're getting out of him is really basic stuff.